Hello, and welcome to the Networking for AI Summit. I'm Bob Laliberte, Principal Analyst with theCUBE Research, and I'm joined today by co-host and Principal Analyst, Zeus Kerravala from ZK Research. And in this session, we're going to be diving into one of the most important topics shaping IT operations today, and that being AgentOps or AgenticOps with Fabrix.ai. But first, welcome, Zeus.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I'm really looking forward to this topic because companies are looking for ways to really simplify operations, right? You know, you and I have done some research together that found networks are more important, but they're always also more complicated. And so we have to simplify our networks, make them smarter, make them proactive. So I'm looking forward to unpacking how Fabrix.ai is approaching this and what it means for the future of networking and IT operations.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're fortunate to have two great guests with us today from Fabrix.ai, and that's Shailesh Manjrekar, the Chief AI and Marketing Officer at Fabrix.ai, and Rached Blili, the Distinguished Engineer from Fabrix.ai. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking forward to having you here. And, you know, we're really hoping today is we're going to explore what this agentic operation, agent operation means in practice, how enterprises can overcome some of those data and visibility challenges, and the value that these AI-driven agents can deliver for both IT teams and the business. So with that, let's get started. Shailesh, let's start with you. Let's take a little bit of a broad view. When we talk about agent ops, what is it that you mean, and why is it emerging as such a critical topic for enterprises today?
Yeah, so first of all, Bob, thanks for making us a part of this. So this is a very pertinent topic, networking for AI, and we are here to talk about actually the flip side of it, which is AI for networking, right? And we look at network as really the nervous system for this agentic AI stack, right? So now to address your question, so if you look at the evolution of AI, right? So we were doing machine learning and we continue to do machine learning. It still works great without the use of GPUs. You can do regression analysis, clustering, and so on and so forth. But from there, we transitioned to generative AI, which was more around request response, right? You were still using transformers and large language models. And from there, the inflection point was really agentic AI, where you're putting the LLM at the center of the decision making, right? And if you look at this LLMs, they have been transformational. They have essentially, when you look at an LLM, it's able to reason, it's able to deliberate, it's able to contemplate, and what we talk in technical terms, a chain of thoughts or a graph of thoughts, break down a particular task or a goal to get to an outcome, right? And that has been extremely transformational, right? But having said that, LLMs also come with their own challenges, right? And these are, at the end of the day, these are stochastic or non-deterministic processes. So an enterprise agentic platform needs to know how to work around that, right? And that's what we'll be talking about today, right? So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect is obviously, you know, when you're working with operational use cases or IT operations, it's a very different domain than the general agentic AI paradigm, right? Where you are just booking, a hotel or booking a cab and so on and so forth. Here we are dealing with actually real-time data, right? So you're dealing with time series data, you're dealing with alerts, you're dealing with incidents. So many of the off-the-shelf agentic frameworks don't apply to this kind of paradigm. So the platform, what we have is actually built grounds up to cater to this kind of, to particularly for operational use cases, right? And that's what we are going to unpack in next 20-25 minutes, right? So that's the promise of Agentic. And what AgentOps, or also known as AgenticOps, means is really how do you operationalize, the entire agentic stack, right? Right from getting to a prompt all the way to looking at the MCP tools, getting to the proper guardrails, experimenting, and then eventually getting to the lifecycle management of these agents, right? And the transformation, biggest transformation has been, if you look at AIOps progression, right? So we started as an AIOps company, right? And with AIOps, there was this last mile problem, as I call it, right? What I mean by that is you got to still look at dashboards, got to look at incident, and it's left to the manual expertise to interpret and take action, remediative action, right? And that used to be a big problem because it is only as good as the expertise you have at hand. So that was one issue with with AI ops. The second issue is, of course, the proliferation of the agentic applications, right? So now you're dealing with agents and LLMs and shadow AI, right? In addition to shadow IT, and how do you manage all of that? And that is what we see as the promise of agentic ops, right? Where you have now agents and agentic workflows being able to cater to those use cases.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And Zeus, I know you had mentioned the research we had done last year. Clearly, AI is critical for a lot of the enterprises as they see these environments getting more complex and so forth. What was the stat again about the organizations that would shift to a new vendor if they had better AI? Do you remember that one?
Yeah, it was something like 83% said that they're using that as that they would switch loyalties to a vendor if it had demonstrably better AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really telling, because I think in most of the research we've ever done, when you asked, would you shift, it might hit around 50% or something like that. And so we're really seeing the impact.
Number I actually do, with incumbent vendors, it's generally under 10%. In emerging
Correct.
markets, the highest number I ever saw, I think, was SD-WAN, 30%. So to have a number of that high just shows the demand today for AI ops and AgentOps, and how much customers are looking forward to it, helping them with their operational issues. So
Yeah, absolutely. Really important topic.
Yeah, I think when you look at the market today, though, Bob, it's evolved a lot, right? So historically, when you think about AI ops, if you want to use that term, it was kind of a niche reactive tool set. And now with AgentOps, it's actually becoming, I think, a foundational pillar of modern IT operations. And so the key shift here from just AI for ops to now truly operationalizing AI with IT means moving beyond simple alert correlation into a much more proactive, predictive, and eventually autonomous state. So this isn't just about the market being a little bit bigger and things like that, but it's a fundamental transformation of how organizations are going to be running their networks, and we're really just hitting the front end of that curve today. And but I'm really looking forward to seeing how this market evolves, because this, Bob, is a long overdue transition. I think network administrators spend a lot of time doing a lot of heavy lifting, and a little bit of AI is going to go a long way here. And so, Rached, I've got a question for you. And so when you look at the market forces driving interest in more agentic AI-driven operations, what are you seeing there, and kind of what are the big drivers today?
Well, I think people are trying to find, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get more out of their people, and they're trying to get their people to do new things. Everybody's under pressure to deliver more with less. And so, I think that people are interested in seeing whether AI can help them achieve that. They're going to run into, I think you said that, this is a fundamental shift. And I agree with you that there is a fundamental shift here, because people are seeing a new capability and they're being pretty excited by it. That doesn't mean that we'll necessarily be able to move past some of the older challenges that we've had, which have all, they're still with us, right? So we still have challenges around data collection, and those usually involve, integration challenges. Getting software to talk to your infrastructure is still something that's difficult. We think at Fabrix, we address that very well with our bot-based architecture that lets us rapidly integrate and rapidly acquire new sources of data. You still have visibility automation challenges. Usually those are going to be around the sense making that happens where, yes, you've collected a bunch of information, you've gathered it, but what does it actually mean? And we think that especially in the areas of networking and telecommunications, having a topology awareness, having advanced clustering and correlation capabilities is the way to try to derive sense. But some of the new challenges in this new way of doing things are going to be very specific to agentic contexts, where you have a context engineering challenge. You have to set the LLM up for success. And that is something that's going to require domain knowledge. It's going to require vertical kind of like focus and understanding exactly how a particular domain works. And in the areas of networking, that's particularly important because some of the things that you're trying to automate and improve require enormous amounts of data and understanding of relationships between entities. So networking is all about, understanding relationships and topologies and dependency flows. And then simple things like, a single router configuration might be enough to overwhelm the context window of a large language model. So how are you actually going to leverage agents and agentic operations across an entire infrastructure? Well, that requires some very careful tooling, very careful capabilities, so that when you present the agent with some sort of a problem, you're presenting it with the right level of problem, the right scope of problem, so they can help you solve it for you.
Yeah, you're talking about your cloud platform, and I think that's important because it centralizes the data. But from a technical standpoint, right, there's a lot of challenges around data collection, visibility, automation. And so what are some of the toughest challenges around that? And then how do you solve them so enterprises can fully trust their AI ops? Because there's this, Bob and I use this, and well, Bob uses this term all the time to trust, I think, something like that. But
time to comfort.
Time to comfort, yeah. And so if that trust can't be built, right, then people aren't going to use these tools. And so if you
absolutely. I mean, before that, right, just to kind of highlight the market side of things, right? So as you absolutely pointed out, Zeus, right? So this is a transformational shift, right? So we're not talking about incremental product update or, hey, my dashboard is better or I'm able to do correlation. This is like you're adding now 4 additional digital workers to my team, right? And now you're not just looking at a product-centric TAM, which used to be like for observability and AI ops, it was like about $36 billion, but you're looking at a workforce-centric TAM, right? That, hey, guys, now you can reshuffle your 2 SREs to do something more strategic while I'm adding 4 additional SREs to your team, right? And that has kind of expanded, obviously, the market TAM as well, which is almost now estimated at about $100 billion, right? So that's where the promise of AgentOps lies, where you are getting tangible benefits out of TCO reduction, right? Making it a lot more democratized, right? You don't need that level of expertise when you're using conversational queries and so on, right? And now, coming to the second part of your question around data collection, I mean, Rashid kind of talked about this a little bit, but just to expand on that, right? Particularly when you look at networking domain, right? Either in enterprise networking or in telco, you have these disparate domains, right? You have somewhere data center, you have campus, you have RAN, you have optical, you have mobility, and each of these have their own data types, right? And you got to be able to, first of all, collect all of that data, coalesce that, more importantly, create that context of what we call enrichment. That's absolutely essential for AI agents or the LLMs to work on, right? And then you got to run, create and schematic layer on top of that, right? Which is what we do. So now the agents understand the edges and nodes, right? So those are some of the challenges and how we try to overcome those, right, when it comes to AI agents, right? Again, from a technology perspective, why Agentic has become, really popular, right, is obviously the progress you're seeing with reasoning LLMs, right? Inference, right, being another kind of an hot topic, but also the transformational approach of MCP, where you're literally giving a manual to an LLM and letting the LLM decide, right, hey, these are my tools, choose the right tools to solve this particular prompt or my goal. So that's kind of the the transformation we are seeing, right? But you got to have those guardrails in place.
Yeah. Okay, Shailesh, you and Rached both talked about how you're able to do the data collection, managing it, have that visibility and automation, and ultimately driving down to a platform for operational intelligence. I'm wondering if you could share with everyone some examples of how implementing this type of a platform delivers value to not only the practitioners, but also to the line of business leaders.
Yeah, so I'll start and I'll let Rashid add to that, right? But I mean, one specific example is, so we have a reference architecture, particularly with Cisco, called Cisco Validated, right, which we were showcasing at Cisco Live and also at the Splunk Data Conference, right? Now you have these disparate tools within a customer environment, right? And he's, say, for an example, he's running an e-commerce application in the data center, and there is a wireless Meraki user outside of the data center who is, say, going through a number of different domains across the Cisco portfolio. This could be Catalyst switches, it could be SD-WAN, there could be ACI Fabric, there could be UCS on which that application is running. There is VMware where the application is virtualized. And now something happens, right? So across the WAN, there is some jitter loss, latency issues. And because of that, there is a drop in your storefront orders, right, for that particular e-commerce app, right? Now we provide that visibility, being able to connect to all of these disparate domains, collect all of that data, right, and being able to correlate all of that data, right? That, hey, because of this latency and loss, right, that's why your orders have stopped, right? Then you can get to the root cause analysis and so on. So that part is extremely powerful, right, and has kind of direct kind of applications, right, when it comes to your top line and bottom line, right? And I'll let Rashid add to that as well, particularly an customer example which we saw.
Yeah, thanks, Shailesh. Yeah, so and just like you said, I think time to value, is a big thing, right? So I think we're very proud of the fact that our bot-centric architecture lets us, integrate and run through the initial kind of proof point very, very quickly, and actually deploy very, very quickly in weeks rather than months. And I've been working in the service provider and network automation space for a long time. And that typically is not the case. It's typically months, and sometimes 18 months to get something up and running. Sometimes the POC outlives the project, and I think that the ability to show value in weeks and to get integration rapidly is super important. And to that point, recently, we worked with a customer that had this global operations team. It was a very distributed team, where actually they had subdivided their teams into multiple sub-teams because their network operation was so complex that they had to have specialist teams spread around the world. And they're obviously gathering a lot of telemetry and a lot of alerts about their network and their various compute and everything that's going on inside their environment. And they have several layers of problems. And I think that we were able to help them on several layers of problems. The first order problem is the obvious one, which is capturing and correlating all these alerts that are coming in. This is what any AIOps platform promises to do. I think we did that, and we were able to apply some of our advanced techniques to try to make all of that improve the signal to noise ratio dramatically. But the second order problem, which was a bit unique to this environment, but I've seen it in other places as well, is that once you've identified and created a single incident that's based on a set of correlated alerts, you still have to get that incident routed to the right place. You have to have the right team receive the ticket. In this particular customer, they would spend a lot of time just bouncing an incident from team to team because it had been misidentified as this kind of problem or that kind of problem. It was just not landing in the right places, and each team had to spend some time reassigning it to other teams, which would increase the time to resolution. So for us, we applied machine learning techniques to be able to predict where the ticket should wind up, and then putting it in the right place. And then there's a third order problem, which is the question.
Yeah, well, go ahead and finish up. And I wanted to drill down on AgentOps a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So the third order problem, which was a new one, which is something that a capability that's introduced by AgentOps is to present finally the team that is receiving the incident with the right investigative framework, with the right diagnostic framework, with the right pre kind of like collection and analysis and correlation that would actually enable them to resolve the issue quickly. So for us, that's a root cause analysis. It's going to be suggested next steps in remediation recommendation and things like that.
Yeah, and then on the topic of AgentOps, which is really AI agents operationalizing other AI agents, right? So talk about how that works in practice. why it's such critically important. If you could you give us some examples of these agents in action and how they're actually used to change day-to-day operations?
Yeah, so essentially, what we mean by AgentOps is really going through the life cycle of these AI agents, both at the platform as well as the external agents, right? And what I mean by that is once you give a prompt or an intent and goal, you start there, right? You look at, hey, do I have the right MCP tools? Do I have access to the right data set for this particular persona? From there, you go to looking at, hey, are the proper guardrails placed around this prompt and the access to that, right? I mean, we have this term called least agency and least privilege, right? So you got to ensure that this particular prompt and this particular persona only has access to what he needs for this particular task. From there, you are experimenting with the prompts, right? And once you have satisfied, you convert those prompts into an AI agent. So we have an AI agent studio, which can actually do this in a drag and drop fashion. And then you get into the life cycle of those AI agents, right? You are basically evaluating them, you are making them better, you're providing feedback. There are what we call evaluation agents, as well as we also use human feedback, right? We use reinforcement learning with human feedback in the loop as well. So the agents are constantly learning, and then over a period, you retire, right? I mean, as Jensen, NVIDIA co-founder or CEO, talks about it, right? Soon the IT departments are going to be, HR departments, where they are basically onboarding these agents, they are doing performance evaluations for them, and eventually retiring. So that's what we mean by AgentOps, right? And operationalizing these agents. Zeus.
Thanks.
Got it. Yeah, I think that that makes a lot of sense, Shailesh. I know we're getting short on time, so one more question I wanted to ask. Obviously, everyone watching, they're trying to understand how they should move forward. Could maybe both you, Shailesh, and Rached talk about what organizations should keep in mind as they're evaluating these AgenticOps platforms, AgentOps platforms?
Yeah, so I'll start and I'll let Rashid add to that, right? So first and foremost, right, everybody wants to, I mean, sees the promise in AI and they want to do this AI, right? They don't know where to start and how do I start, right? What GPUs I should use, what frameworks I should use, particularly in the networking world, right? When you're dealing with, front-end networks and back-end networks and WAN, AI is not a native kind of an technology, right? So what we have done is we have made this easy. We have started a program, launched a program called AAA Agentic AI Acceleration, where we make it easy for customers to start. We actually bundle all of this, the agentic framework along with the product, providing some tier of tokens for the customer to consume to start with, right? And that makes his life a lot more easier. So that's kind of the first aspect. The second aspect is obviously the reason why customers are looking at this is, so we have really kind of gotten to a place where this is an experience economy, right? So you're not just looking at availability and performance as KPIs, you're looking at experience as a KPIs, right? So that's where AgentOps promise comes in, right? And what customers are actually looking forward as outcomes out of this AgentOps, right? So you got to ensure that the platform is capable of delivering those things, right? Has all the right hooks and kind of an framework already built in, right, for the customers to work with, right? So those are some of the things. We will also have a summit later in November timeframe, where we will be bringing actual customers and partners who will be talking to how they are seeing benefits out of the platform. Along the summit will be with theCUBE, right? And that's where we'll be also kind of revealing some of other additional roadmap items, right? So this, again, space is moving very fast and is in constant evolution, right? So you have to have a vendor who is constantly innovating around this, right? So we have a lot of other features where we talk about, sandboxes, which can have certain limits in terms of tokens and so on and so forth. So all of that capability is coming in November timeframe. So I'll let Rashid add a few more things to this.
Yeah, so I think everything Shailesh just said, but I would just add, building agents is not hard. It's everything else around the agent that is hard. And so if you are looking and you're evaluating a platform, I would say you have to focus on what kind of tooling is going to be available for the agents, What kind of mechanisms and techniques are available to engineer just the right context? Because you want to serve an agent with a solvable problem, and that takes a lot of engineering in order to hand the agent a problem that's solvable. And I would say, are you thinking about getting agents from a company that understands what you're trying to do with those agents? Is there some vertical and some domain expertise? And so I think those are extremely important, because getting an LLM to use tools is actually quite easy. It's getting it to do it reliably and effectively in the context where it's actually going to have to operate with the kind of data that it's going to have to handle. And you need some expertise in order to make that happen reliably and effectively.
Excellent. Well, I think that was great advice. And yes, Shailesh, we're looking forward to the follow-up summit coming later this year. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. Zeus, I wanted to touch base with you. You've heard them both give their opinions on what they need to keep in mind. I'm wondering, from an analyst standpoint, if you could share how you see the future of AgenticOps evolving over the next couple of years, and maybe where you think what's going to separate some of the leaders from the laggards.
Yeah, I think, from my vantage point, Bob, the future of AgenticOps here over the next couple of years will be defined by, I think, a massive leap from what we think of today as intelligent assistants to intelligent autonomous problem solver, right? So this is more than a simple upgrade, as Shailesh mentioned. It's more than just my dashboard's prettier than your dashboard. It's moving away from AI platforms that simply provide insights and recommendations to systems that can, within a defined set of guardrails, take action. And so if you think about the way this has evolved, I think about like 3 steps. The first step will be, better correlation and noise reduction. And so we've seen that already with the early AI platforms. The second step, though, becomes, and here's where it becomes interesting, is the predictive insights. And so the next phase, and where many platforms, including Fabrix.ai, is headed right now, is about using that historical data to predict future incidents before they happen. And so for the first time ever, right, we can be more proactive than we're reactive. And then the final state is that AgenticOps, AIOps, where I think this is where the transformational leap happens. And so they won't just predict, they'll be able to reason, plan, and execute a response. I think at first we'll do that with people, and then they'll automate. We'll see that automative. And so your question on leaders and laggards, I think, is an interesting one. I think obviously the capabilities, right, to do the things and the error rate, but I do think some other things to keep in mind are data and governance. And so the foundation of any successful AIOps strategy is a clean, well-governed, data strategy. Laggards, I think, will struggle with different silos, and I think this is why the cloud-based platform that Rached mentioned before becomes so important. And so, in data sciences, there's an expression that says, good data leads to good insights. Well, if I have too many silos of data, I'm going to get fragmented insights. I also think the ability to keep the human in the loop becomes important as well. And so while we want to automate everything, it's not a silver bullet, right? We're not going to solve all our problems with this. And so the ability to keep that human in the loop and be able to work with people becomes important. And then lastly, I just think organizational alignment and be able to help your customers align your strategies here with your board level priorities, I think, is something that vendors need to focus on. And so, that's, I guess, Bob, the way I see the world here.
Yeah, no, I think those are great insights, Zeus. Certainly that ability to collect that data, keep it in context, is going to be hugely important. As I mentioned, with time to comfort and, the human factor, I think, is hugely important, especially because we've got such a great access today to network engineers who've got 20, 30, or even more years of experience to be able to help them or have them help us make these tools that much better, that much more accurate, I think is going to be critical for definitely the short term and potentially even the long term. And I think, like I said, it is going to be hugely impactful in moving beyond the, going from reactive, proactive, predictive, right, and being able to reason and find issues. So it's going to be a really interesting time, and I am definitely looking forward to it. I know this has been a really fascinating discussion. We've heard how the market trends are pushing the enterprises towards more intelligent, autonomous operations. Fabrix.ai has done a great job of laying out how they're doing that data collection, automation, intelligence onto their AgentOps platform. And so a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, Bob,
Yeah,
I think
thank you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was
Go
just
ahead,
going to add that I think you said that exactly right, Bob. I think what really stood out to me is that concept of AgentOps, not just using AI agents, but creating a system to manage, orchestrate, correlate, and operationalize them effectively. And so it's going to be a big differentiator in the years ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Shailesh, Rached, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insights. Appreciate having you on.
Yeah, thank you, Bob and Zeus. Thanks for taking the time, and we look forward to sharing more details with you in the November timeframe at the studio.
Thank you, guys. This was fun.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. And to our audience, thank you for joining us on this session on AgentOps. Stay tuned for more discussions throughout the summit as we continue to explore how networking and AI are coming together to transform the enterprise.